Hello everyone, China's drone aircraft carrier has arrived, and Australia is asking, why do they still need to buy American Apache helicopters now? In addition, Trump keeps coming up with new ways to suppress freedom. Not only did he force Harvard University to stop admitting international students, but even the Secretary of Homeland Security doesn't know what a habeas corpus order is. Trump's violations of human rights and freedoms can truly be said to defy people's imagination. First, restricting personal freedom. The US government arbitrarily deports immigrants they consider illegal to El Salvador. White House Advisor Miller said on May 9 that the White House is studying whether to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. If implemented, this would deprive large numbers of deported immigrants of their right to appeal through the courts. On May 20th, US Secretary of Homeland Security Lom, who is responsible for overseeing immigration and customs enforcement, attended a Senate hearing to be questioned. At the hearing, New Hampshire Senator Hasan questioned Secretary Lom, who is nicknamed Barbie Doll. She asked, "Do you know what a writ of habeas corpus is?" Lom responded by saying that habeas corpus is a constitutional power held by the president, allowing people to be expelled from the country and suspending their rights. Before she could finish her explanation, she was interrupted by Hasan. Hasan pushed back, stating that habeas corpus is a legal principle that requires the government to publicly explain the reasons for detaining and imprisoning people. Habeas corpus, this fundamental right, is what separates free societies like the United States from police states like North Korea. But Lom seemed not to understand what Hasan was saying and continued to answer, "I support habeas corpus." She also said that the president has the authority to decide whether to terminate the relevant rights. Minister Barbie's interpretation of habeas corpus is appalling. She interpreted habeas corpus as an order that allows the president to expel people from the United States. There are two possible reasons for her answer. First, she may have intellectual issues and genuinely believes that this is what habeas corpus means. Or second, she knows perfectly well that habeas corpus means the exact opposite, but she deliberately distorts the truth, twisting an order meant to protect individual rights into a presidential power to expel people from the United States. Both possibilities are actually quite frightening. Of course, we can't rule out the chance that Loim really doesn't understand what habeas corpus is, given how slapdash the Trump administration is. For example, Secretary of Education McMahon once repeatedly referred to AI artificial intelligence's AON during a speech at a Silicon Valley Tech Summit. And he kept repeating it. He clearly always thought those two letters were pronounced AON. Since AON is the name of a well-known steak sauce, this led American netizens to create a flood of memes about AON steak sauce and Secretary of Education McMahon. It's also possible that Loim and the Trump administration are deliberately ignoring the constitutional provision of habeas corpus. According to Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the US Constitution, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless in cases of rebellion or invasion when the public safety may require it. But the Trump administration arbitrarily sent people to supermax prisons in other countries, completely disregarding the right to personal liberty. In contrast, Hong Kong tries Jimmy Lai according to the law and would not send him to a foreign prison without trial. If he were to commit the same national security law offense in the United States, I'm afraid he wouldn't receive such fair treatment as in Hong Kong. Second, academic freedom. The remarkable thing about the Trump administration is that it could undermine all kinds of freedoms at the same time, and its methods were endlessly inventive. It was also the US Department of Homeland Security, overseen by this Barbie doll minister, that issued a statement on May 22, announcing that the US government had revoked Harvard University's eligibility to enroll international students, citing that Harvard was not safe and requiring all foreign students at Harvard to transfer to other schools, or else they would lose their legal status to stay in the United States. The statement also said that Secretary Lom of the Department of Homeland Security had ordered the termination of Harvard University's certification for its student and exchange visitor programs. Many universities in the United States have allowed students and faculty to exercise freedom of speech and academic freedom, expressing opposition to US support for Israel's military actions. As a result, Trump accused them of being anti-Semitic. Some universities, such as Columbia University, have already caved in, fully complying with the Trump administration's demands, including replacing department heads that Trump disliked. However, Harvard refused to bow down and instead took the Trump administration to court. Trump is now retaliating by revoking Harvard University's eligibility to enroll international students. Harvard responded by saying that the federal government's actions are illegal, constitute retaliation, and could cause serious harm to the university. Harvard's international students and scholars come from more than 140 countries, making tremendous contributions to both Harvard and the United States as a whole. But Trump doesn't care how much you've contributed. As long as your views differ from his, or you refuse to obey his arbitrary decisions, he'll crush you without hesitation. Harvard University will challenge the Department of Homeland Security's order in court. But for the students, foreign teachers, and visiting scholars at the school, it's already a case of all risk and no reward. I also remember that shortly after Hong Kong's return, there was a polling incident at the University of Hong Kong. At that time, staff from the Chief Executive's office were accused of inquiring with HKU about the methods used in the university's public opinion research program, which raised concerns about interference with academic freedom. As a result, the then president of HKU, Cheng Yu-chung, was forced to resign. The pro-independence camp almost used the polling incident to force Chief Executive Teng Chi-hua to step down. Looking back at the HKU polling incident now, compared to the Harvard incident, it truly pales in comparison. Third, the international order. We must not only talk about the rights and freedoms within a country, but also about the rights and freedoms between nations. Trump can be said to have completely disregarded the rights of other countries, especially smaller nations. One example is when Trump met with visiting South African President Ramaphosa on May 21. He suddenly ordered the lights to be turned off and played a video directly showing footage about South Africa. He even brought out some newspaper clippings, accusing South Africa of carrying out racial massacres against white people, which made the situation extremely awkward. But what was even more embarrassing was that a day later, after review by AFP and South African media, it was discovered that among the so-called evidence Trump presented of racial massacres against white people in South Africa, one of the photos was actually from the conflict escalation in Eastern Congo in February this year, but was claimed to be from South Africa. Trump really dares to do anything. So I asked the American AI large model, why does the United States sanction Hong Kong officials? It mainly gave 4 reasons. First, that democracy and freedom in Hong Kong are restricted. Second, the implementation of the national security law in Hong Kong. Third, tense China-US relations. Fourth, maintaining international rules. Comparing these 4 points, first the situation of restricted democracy and freedom in Hong Kong and the current situation in the United States nowadays, you really can't compare it to the US at all. Hong Kong also doesn't arbitrarily send illegal immigrants to prisons in other third world countries. Second, the implementation of the national security law, the severity of Hong Kong's national security law is also in no way comparable to that of the United States. Third, maintaining the order of international rules. Hong Kong definitely values international rules more than the United States does. The US is now the champion of withdrawing from international organizations. Only the 4th reason, tense China-US relations, can be explained, but this also proves that all these actions by the US targeting mainland China and Hong Kong are completely unfounded and are simply acts of malice against China. Can those wanted individuals from Hong Kong, who are in exile overseas, still appeal to the US government for Hong Kong's democracy and freedom in the future? What they are doing is, in fact, the greatest irony. Next, let's talk about China's airborne drone carrier. According to CCTV reports, China's independently developed Jushin drone is currently undergoing system installation and testing, and its maiden flight mission is expected to be completed by the end of June this year. The distinguishing feature of this integrated reconnaissance and strike drone is its massive cargo bay, which can carry hundreds of small kamikaze drones. These can be deployed like a swarm to attack opponents, delivering extremely powerful offensive capabilities. For this reason, it is also referred to as an airborne drone carrier. Back in November, the Jushin drone already attracted attention when it was unveiled at the Zhuhai Air Show in China. At the time, the CCTV military channel reported that the Jushin drone system is a heavy drone with flexible configuration, serving as the next-generation large unmanned aerial general-purpose platform for the PLA. Its distinguishing feature is that it is equipped with a quickly replaceable, heavy-duty mission bay and 8 external hardpoints. By swapping out different modules, its payload can meet the needs of civilian air transport and airdrop, military information support, and strike missions as an airborne drone carrier. The Jushin drone has a wingspan of 25 meters, a maximum takeoff weight of 16 tons, and a maximum payload capacity of 6 tons. The Jushin drone also boasts excellent endurance, with a maximum range of 70 kilometers and a flight time of over 12 hours. Its payload capability is also impressive. With 8 hardpoints, it can carry 1 0-kilogram class guided bombs, as well as air-to-air missiles, air-to-ground missiles, anti-ship missiles, and cruise missiles. Military experts say that even more importantly, if equipped with advanced electronic warfare pods, it can suppress and jam enemy radar, thereby enhancing its own survivability. If it can be equipped with a directional infrared countermeasure system, it can use laser beams to disrupt enemy infrared-guided missiles, which would greatly enhance its survivability. The Jushin drone is equipped with a quickly interchangeable mission pod, allowing it to switch mission types within 2 hours by swapping out different modules. Another feature is the integration of a mysterious dual-hive mission bay in the belly of the aircraft, which can accommodate hundreds of cruise missiles or small drones. However, according to a report by Newsweek, despite such claims from the Chinese side, a drone carrier of that scale still has significant shortcomings when facing modern air defense systems. Even at its maximum altitude, the drone is still within the range of various modern air defense systems, including the US THAAD system and the Patriot missile system. However, Professor Yuan Zhuzheng from National Taiwan University pointed out that the biggest drawback of drones at present is that they are easily shot down. But the cost of China's Jushin drone is only about 1/10 that of the American Reaper drone, which already gives it a huge cost advantage. In addition, the Jushin drone is equipped with infrared jamming devices, which can emit confusing signals when a missile locks onto it, thereby extending its operational time in the air. This is also key to its survivability. Moreover, the perspective of the end user is the most practical. When Sky News Australia reported on the Jushin drone, they said, imagine a scenario where the Jushin drone suddenly releases 100 unmanned attack drones. This would completely overwhelm the enemy's defenses. The Sky News host said that what he found interesting was that just as Australia recently signed a deal to purchase 20 to 30 new American Apache attack helicopters at a cost of about 5 billion Australian dollars, other countries around the world are turning to drones. China already possesses these advanced drones, and even Japan's self-defense forces have phased out attack helicopters in favor of drones. Drones cost at least several $million less than these expensive American helicopters. Australia seems to still be investing in outdated technology, which leaves them extremely vulnerable in the event of an attack. An American Apache helicopter sells for as much as $100 million each, which is far more expensive than the Jushin drone. However, it's clear that Apache helicopters really can't compete with the drone swarms brought by the Jushin drones. In conclusion, the history of future aerial warfare will be rewritten. America's expensive weaponry is already outdated.